Come on in. Welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're talking about 5 of Survivor's least iconic alliances. Last week, I looked at 10 of Survivor's most iconic alliances, legendary groups of players who went down in Survivor lore as some of the greatest and most entertaining to ever play the game. The Toggy Four, the Black Widow Brigade, Cops R Us, these are unforgettable alliances that any Survivor fan knows. Now it's time to look at the other side of the coin. Completely uniconic alliances you forgot existed, possibly even while watching the season, possibly even while they're on screen. To narrow my scope, I've decided to feature alliances that have more than 2 people that existed for more than 1 episode. Sure, I could just put in like Kelly and Paloma's brief alliance in Survivor Gabon here, but I wouldn't have much to say about it, other than a continued bewilderment of what Paloma was sitting on during her confessionals. Rather, these will be alliances that were part of major storylines and actually had at least a minor impact in the game. Which totally uniconic alliances did you completely forget existed? Let's find out. All that said, let's take a look at 5 of Survivor's least iconic alliances ever. At number 5 is the Sukjai Alliance from Survivor Thailand. This may be the only alliance in Survivor history with 0 fans. No fans, not even ironically. No one likes or remembers this group of people. I'm not saying that Chewigon lit my world on fire, but at least they had an interesting dynamic and a few kooky personalities. Plus, Brian was interesting to watch from a sociological perspective.
So I happen to have a little too much wine, a little too many crackers, but at the same time it shows everyone I'm human and I'm one of them.
Sukjai is there. It's amusing to me that this alliance was propped up in the edit as the players we are supposed to root for. Outside of Jake, this alliance is grouchy and generally unpleasant, and they were only kinda sorta positioned in editing as the heroes of the story because, well, look at this final 2. No editing tricks in the world could make Brian a hero. Still would have made more sense on the Heroes tribe than Candace, though. The dominant alliance on Sukjai was formed early on by Jake, largely as a block against Stephanie and Jed, who were viewed as poor camp workers, and Rob, who is, Rob. If you worked hard and weren't choking people out at challenges, you were in the alliance. She-Ann, however, was always an outsider within the main group, and at the merge, she tried to flip to Chewigon, probably out of boredom. But Jeff pulls the old Uno reverse card and reveals that actually, this isn't a merge. You're just living on the same beach. So when Sukjai lose immunity at Final 10, she is voted out, leaving us with, oh boy, Jake, Penny, Ken, and Aaron. Consider me whelmed. They lose again, and now one of the main, non-flipping members of the Alliance actually has to go. Episode 8 of Thailand is so weepy. We're meant to feel the weight of this soul-crushing decision from Sukjai, where one of the members of this little island family must be sacrificed. But personally, I'm not shedding any tears over losing Aaron. She gave leaf tear confessionals.
We actually found quite a few oysters, which there's a ton there. It just takes a really long time to crack them off.
After that, at the merge proper at Final 8, Chewigon quietly pagong Ken, Penny, and Jake, leaving us with a Final 5 that Jeff Probst once called the worst of all time. The Sukjai Alliance was simultaneously under-edited and appropriately edited. We spent a lot of time pre-merge at Sukjai, but a lot of the screen time goes to Rob, leaving the 4 main members of Sukjai without a ton of time in front of the screen, and what we do get is often them commenting on or arguing with Rob. But when they do get the floor, we see why they weren't pushed front and center. Ken has his moments, Jake has Roger Bingham upside, and Penny has a fun little mean streak akin to Kelly Goldsmith if you really look hard for it. But overall, there's the sense that we've seen these archetypes before, but a lot better, and with much less crying. At number 4 are the Coma 6 from Survivor Edge of Extinction. Try to name all 6 members of this alliance. Do it. Name the first and last names of all 6 people in the Coma 6. I can't do it, and it's my job, and I'm literally talking about them right now. The Coma 6 were founded by Ron and Eric early on at the Coma tribe. You can say what you want about these 6 players, but we can pretty well thank them for destroying Captain seasons forever, courtesy of their immediate and successful targeting of Joe and Aubrey. They did not like the idea of returning players, and felt that not only did Joe and Aubrey have an obvious advantage, but that their helpful instructions in the early days of the game kinda ruined part of the fun of the Survivor experience, figuring things out for yourself. Ron and Eric recruited Gavin, Julie, Victoria, and Julia, and on Coma, strategy basically paused at this point until they eventually lost immunity, which only happened once Joe was swapped away. First returnee down. Although separated by swap, the Coma 6 stayed Coma strong and reunited at the merge, and decided to finish what they started by voting out Joe. Second returnee down. Alrighty, we've accomplished our goal, gotten out the returnees, and gotten all 6 of us to the second half of the game. What next? How about we implode? Coma should have stuck together for at least a few more rounds and taken out some of the Manu players, but as often happens, early game success gave them itchy feet, and most of Coma turned on Alliance ringleader Eric the next round. I guess he wasn't a Coma chameleon after all. No? Okay. With Coma cooked, all bets were off, and Julie and Ron jumped ship to Manu at the next tribal council, then got flipped on themselves, and ultimately 2 of the Coma 6, Gavin and Julie, made the end with the 3rd boot of the season, whose name is... No, don't tell me. Chip? Wow, now this is a final 3. Amusingly, literally none of the Coma 6 voted for Gavin or Julie to win, and instead piled their votes on a guy who was out of the game proper twice as long as he was actually in it. What makes the Coma 6 so uniconic is that they are one of the most under-edited tribes in history. Call it punishment for voting out Aubrey and Joe, but they got next to no content. Seriously, Aubrey has more confessionals than half of them, and only 2 fewer than Gavin, the 2nd place finalist. It's just hard to have an opinion anyway about these people, although this is the only alliance in Survivor history where a member has a movie about them starring Matthew Perry, so there is that. At number 3 is the Rooster Alliance in Survivor One World, the first of 3 all-male alliances on this list. Try and guess what the other ones are, and the only alliance from One World which made the cut. Although you could certainly make a case for, well, most of the alliances this season. Divided by gender but placed on the same beach, the One World theme is a good concept completely squandered on a lackluster cast, particularly the tribe of men, Monono. When a tribe peaks at Troyzan, we've got a problem. Monono quickly split up into 2 competing factions, the Virgin Misfits and the Chad Roosters. Also known as the Muscle Alliance, this group consisted of all the muscle: Jay, Michael, Bill, and Matt. This alliance was formed by Matt almost immediately after hitting the beach, and the Monono hunks made that classic Survivor mistake, not being able to count. I can't believe I have to say this, but 4 out of 9 is not a majority. After running the numbers, Matt realizes that he's outnumbered, and so he tries to recruit Troyzan, but it's too late. After it was clear that the bros were broing down into an alliance, Colton launched a counter-offensive against them and recruited the remaining miscellaneous tribe members into his own alliance and voted out Matt at their first tribal council, then Bill at their second. Those that didn't fall to Colton here fell to Kim early in the merge. This is an alliance that isn't really talked about much, although who wants to talk about One World anyway? But it plays a big role in the first 3 episodes of this season. Normally, the downfall of a group of cocky guys at the hands of tribe outsiders would be an exciting and satisfying narrative. That's not how it shakes out here. Colton, Survivor's little Joffrey Baratheon, is a tyrant and also constantly makes classist, ableist, and racist remarks, making his alliance not super rootable, even though the rest of them really did nothing wrong. In the Rooster Alliance, only Matt is really antagonistic, and he's like fun to root against. Michael seems pretty chill. Jay's a likable little goofball with a likable little voice.
I have you guys know I'm completely bumfuzzled right now.
And Bill is downright sympathetic. Nonetheless, the Rooster Alliance is quickly turned into chicken nuggets at the hands of Colton. And unlike chicken nuggets, it's quickly digested. At number 2 is the sleepiest alliance of all time, the Lumina Alliance and Survivor Exile Island. The Lumina Alliance formed in the episode 2 swap, when a tribe pick'em gives us the most imbalanced tribes entertainment-wise in Survivor history. I don't begrudge the members of Lumina for picking stable, well-adjusted adults in the tribe pick'em, but they were tribe pick'eming like they were on a mission from God to create the most boring tribe in Survivor history. The tone was set for Kasaya when Danielle, a captain who had first pick, picked Shane as her first round draft pick. She looked at the board and was like, give me that guy. Lumina would have been a pretty boring tribe on any season, but compared to the collectively unstable, volatile little tribe of weirdos and wannabe murderers that could, they are a mayonnaise sandwich on Wonder Bread. The main Lumina Alliance proper forms pretty early on when the 4 men, Carrie, Austin, Nick, and Dan, align, leaving the 3 women of the tribe, Sally, Ruth Marie, and Misty, on the outs. The edit smartly spends as little time at Lumina as possible, as nothing of note really happens. Although the younger guys flirt with the idea of aligning with Misty and Sally, literally, the core 4 alliance of dudes is locked in almost from the start, and so most of what we get at this tribe is just Terry and Dan talking about who loves America more. The most exciting thing that happens to this tribe the entire time is Misty rubbing Austin's back. I'm not kidding. Other than that, we watch them spend a lot of time laying around, speaking quietly, and laying around and speaking quietly. Remember to use your inside voices, fellas. Wouldn't want to accidentally entertain anyone. The Lumina boys pick off Misty and then Ruth Marie, but on their third vote, Sally is away at Exile Island, meaning the 4 guys must make the decision to vote off one of their own, which ends up being Astronaut Dan. I know, you probably forgot he was an astronaut who's been to space. He never brought it up on the show. This vote really exemplifies just how dull life at Lumina is to watch. Even when they're trying to be super dramatic, I'm bored. Mercifully, Lumina enters the merge down in numbers and is quietly picked off one by one, sans Terry, who makes a deep run thanks to a series of immunity wins. The thing about the Lumina alliances, they're just so boring, and it's made even boringer by the fact that it's impossible not to compare them to the Trainwreck tribe on the next beach over. I'll always take the abject chaos of Kasaya voting off one of their strongest guys by plurality over this overly saccharine vote. Thus is the duality of Lumina. I would prefer they all go as soon as possible, but also, then I have to spend more time with Lumina. The least iconic alliance in Survivor history is the Young Men's Alliance in Survivor Vanuatu. I know what you're saying. Who could forget these young lads? You gotta love, hold on, Brooke, John, Brady, and other John. Okay, the Young Men's Alliance on the Pevy is incredibly forgettable, but like the Roosters of One World, an important part of the early game of this season. The 4 guys in this alliance thought their athleticism would carry them in the game and allow them to coast. After all, Chris was a slam dunk first boot when they lost the first immunity challenge. He directly cost them the win by being unable to cross a beam, no matter how slowly he went. Dude would hate Assassin's Creed. That game is like all crossing beams. The 4 younger guys pitched a Chris boot after that embarrassing immunity loss, but little did they know that the 5 older guys in the tribe were already aligning against them, an alliance lovingly dubbed the Fat Five. Once Brooke was sent home in a shocking first vote, Brady and JP were sent scrambling, and they tried desperately to target Rory, who was rubbing everyone on the tribe the wrong way, but it didn't work, and they were voted out at the next 2 LaPevi tribal councils. John K made the swap, but was sacrificed by Chris, Chad, and Sarge, and was sent to the big mechanical bull in the sky. Or Ponderosa. By day 18, this alliance was completely gone. What vaults this alliance into the least iconic ever territory for me is that there's just nothing memorable about them whatsoever. The beginning of Vanuatu is already a bit of a slog, and this tepid alliance is a huge part of that. By far, the most memorable part of this entire alliance's existence on Survivor is John Kenny's job, which, credit where credit's due, that is an all-time hilarious Chiron. They seem like perfectly nice guys. Brady and Brooke both had some game sense. JP would have been fun if he lasted, and John K had a silly job which made me giggle. But they completely deflate the second they're defeated at the first vote, and it's obvious to the audience and the players that there's basically nothing they can do to dig themselves out of the hole they created. It just comes down to a rootability problem. Brady's not a particularly inspiring underdog. JP would be much better served as a character, as an antagonistic overdog in a majority who gets a satisfying comeuppance. And John Kenny, I'm not even sure he knows what show he's on. Look, Survivor, I'm just not gonna root for the guy whose job is flinging drunk cowgirls across the bar. Got nothing else for you. To avoid being one of my least iconic viewers, like and subscribe, and I'll get you more Survivor content just like this. Until next time, don't get idled out.